Hello everyone, welcome back to Challengers Polaris. As you can see, sort of in the moment since the broadcast started, the sun has set and a new dawn has risen. We've got a couple of games coming up for you, the first of which, FOKUS FOKUS. Could this be a new dawn for FOKUS? They're currently 0-3 in the tournament so far, right? They've not had the best start to the split. FOKUS, their opponent, a team which has looked to improve off the back of that Apex result. Both of them have now had a week to reset, adjust, and bring in forward what it is they think the best possible changes can be to secure a result against one another today. Moxie, how are you feeling going into this one? Just as a more loose question, I suppose.
I mean, I'm getting ready to just sit back and get real comfortable because I think this one's going to go on for a while. This has the potential to be a free mapper. We both agree that it has the potential to be a free mapper, and we both agree that the difference maker is going to be on FOKUS' side. If they're able to pick up that first map and find that momentum, we're going to see a different side to this team. We've already seen, and we talked to them a little bit earlier as well, they confess that that first map is the struggle, that it takes a little bit longer for them to really be able to warm up and hit their stride. And you see it. It's reflected in the scores of their first matchups, right? Normally their first match is maybe 3-13 on a loss. And then they go to that second match and we just see this explosion of aggression, of really good executions coming out from this team, such good coordinations, really good pushes. And it goes all the way to overtime with teams up, the likes of Apex, that they're able to take all the way almost to the ends of the line. And I think we could see a free mapper if they're finally able to take one first map in a series.
I guess it's almost that pent-up rage from the first map that is translated into a better second map performance, but we'll have to see how that works. On the flip side, let's talk about FOKUS to start things off. I think it's very interesting looking at it as well. We spoke already a little bit about role swaps. Your boy Lewis, as you can see from the first clip there, has moved from being that duelist player over towards the initiator over the last few months, and the bigger change for him, in my mind, is that he's now playing as the IGL. Said in the interview after the game against Bonk last week that it was only his 6th or 7th official in this role, so a learning process which he's taken with both hands, and we'll hope to deliver another result here by captaining the team.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about role swaps. This team is very familiar with role swaps. They do it pretty much every single match, every single map. Almost, we see all of these entirely different roles. Like, it used to be that you would see maybe the Jet change over and flex onto something like a Chamber or a Raze or a Reyna, but this team just has so many different faces, and it is a really good strength in the fact that they can go onto the same maps that they play continuously, maps like Ascent, and entirely change up their composition, but it comes at a price, and that price means that it cuts into practice hours. If you're scrimming one particular composition, you can dedicate 100% of your time to it. If you're scrimming two different compositions, that time that you get allocated to each of those comps is then cut in half, and it becomes a little bit harder to really be able to refine. And that was something that we saw when this team played Apex on Ascent. Ascent used to be one of their strongest maps. They felt confident to be able to take Ascent there, and it was a scoreline of 3-13. In fact, they only got 2 first kills in 16 rounds.
Yeah, the interesting point actually to make about both of these two teams, if we use FOKUS as a comparative meter, or use Apex as a comparative meter, sorry, would be that FOKUS actually managed to play or win one more round against them than we saw from FOKUS as a whole across the two maps. That's if you're excluding all of the additional rounds in the overtime and only counting up to 12. And here are some of the clips from it. Mishu going absolutely crazy on the Phoenix on the B site here, or the A site, sorry. And yeah, I mean, it's really crazy that a team like this can just go blow for blow with one of the best in the region when you look at it sort of on just a one map at a time. But then it's that confidence sometimes that's just really holding them back.
Yeah, I think, like, you can see that they have the right ideas, right? They were running the Phoenix just as Apex was running the Phoenix on Pearl, because Phoenix is actually a really strong duelist on that particular map. With how sort of crazy located mid is, there's really good places for your curveballs to be able to go through. You can wall off angles if you want to push onto B. If you're worried about having high ground control for the defenders sitting up on tower, you have that wall. You can try and cut off that line of sight and move and put a little bit more pressure, maybe sneak your way into halls to be able to take a split off angle and pressure the defenders as they rotate away from mid. It's working out really well for this team. As you said, They have the mechanicals, they have the game sense, it really is just the confidence. And again, that all spirals back to the beginning of these series. If they have to adjust their strides because they lose that first map, they're always at a disadvantage, they're always fighting on the back foot, and we never really get to see them have that confidence and that comfort because they're always pushing up against two different stress factors. The match that they're playing and anything that's thrown at them, but also the fact that they're already a map down and they need to win this map to be able to take it away. And as a result, it feels like they stumble at that final hurdle just because of how much pressure is stacked on their shoulders for every single round of that second series.
Yeah, I think Hookahs right now is a very complicated, very intricate being, one which needs some proper insight to untangle. So we have an interview here with David. So, David, thank you for joining us here for a quick interview. Firstly, how are you feeling ahead of the series?
I'm feeling confident. I think we have a pretty good shot in this match. I feel like we've worked on like the issues we had in the other matches. And I also feel like we showed kind of what we can do as a team when we play up to par in the Apex game on the Pearl match. While I don't feel like we have showed our best performance in the other series, except for like second game where it's like close, but first game is always very shit.
Yeah, that was the point that I was actually going to lean into. We've seen some very one-sided first games followed by some incredibly close second games. I mean, that ridiculous match against Apex the other day, the 19-17 eventual loss for you guys. Would you say that there is that sort of mental barrier that you need to overcome more than anything, and that confidence is the main issue for this team right now?
I would say so, yeah. I don't know what it is exactly, and I don't feel like anyone knows because, I mean, we're all kind of experienced players, so it's not like we're nervous or anything like that. But for some reason, it's just not clicking in the first match, and we just got to figure out how to make it click in the first match. And we're getting there, so it's getting better.
Yeah.
So I'm also really happy that you brought up that match against Apex, because one question that has just been burning in the back of my mind ever since I saw it was whether or not you'd all been practicing Phoenix on Pearl before you saw Apex run it, or if that's a new development since you saw how good a composition that was when they played up against FOKUS a couple of days ago.
It's something we've been practicing for a long time, actually. I think we already pulled it out like 2 months ago or something like that on Pearl, because we already thought Phoenix was a stronger agent. We tried both Reyna, we tried Jet, we tried Raze, we tried all the different duelists, but Phoenix is the best one.
I
so
guess
would you would you then say that when it comes to things like map picks, you focus more on elevating the team strength and trying to enable the maps that your compositions are strongest on instead of denying your opponents their strongest picks?
I think it depends very much on the team, because some teams are like, they're good on maps, but they're not dominant, and then there's teams that's dominant on maps. So like the teams that's dominant on maps, we try to avoid letting them get their picks.
Yeah, and the natural question for me to follow up with, after the last week, you guys have had some time to prepare and work on things like you said. In comparison to that huge amount of time there was between splits, would you say that this has been a lot more beneficial for you because there's more focus perhaps to what it is exactly you've been working on?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say we had a better week of scrims this week, while we had like the kind of break than we had prior, also because like it's kind of hard to like have the good mental when you're like down 0-3 and stuff like that. So, yeah, exactly. but it was a nice week.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, it's being over prepared in a way, I suppose, if you have that much space between two different splits to try and work out things that you want to try and focus on. So it's good. Seem to have made the necessary steps. We'll have to see if that pans out in the game later on today. So David, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck in your game later on.
Thank you. Bye.
It was great to hear from David there, to understand in the inner workings of Hookahs right now and where their heads are at in terms of how they can really make a step forward. I think looking at the games that they've got coming up, this one against FOKUS is a fantastic opportunity to really spark that fire back in the Hookahs engine and get them back down the correct road.
Yeah, I think there's definitely as well time for them to be able to land on their feet, right? Maybe they're not going to be able to make it into playoffs given the fact that they're already 3 matches down, but they can really put themselves into having a driving seat into the next iteration of the split, just so that they can have the confidence, know that they were able to stand toe-to-toe with other teams at this level.
Definitely. Then looking into this matchup specifically from Hookahs, then over towards FOKUS, and the matchup that we've highlighted specifically between two players, it's the age-old duelist versus duelist, but we have to pull it out at least once per stream. We've got Yugi for FOKUS and Mishu for Hookahs. In terms of the statistics that stand out for me most here, it's got to be those first blood and first death percentages, and overall, it mainly seems like Yugi has sort of broken even in the middle, and that definitely bodes a lot better than dying more than you're getting those kills.
Yeah, there's a little asterisk as well, because Yugi has played Jet more times, right? He has played Jet 7 times. Mishu has played Jet 3 times. Notably for me, the amount of times that we saw Mishu actually struggling in terms of those first deaths was on Fracture when he was playing Raze. This was something that stood out to me a lot because he died 8 times the first time on Fracture as Raze, and that's unfortunately really bad for the team because Raze is one of the strongest agents in your composition. You need the Raze to be alive so that you can hold down if you're on the defense. Places like halls and tower, if you're attacking, you need to be able to push onto those areas of defense and pressure with the utility that Raze brings to the table, and that sort of transfers over to the Jet, right? Jet in that duelist role is supposed to create the space for the rest of the team. The Initiator is there to enable the Jet to have a safer entrance onto those lines of sight so that you can use your Cloudburst, you can drop them down, you can make sure that if you dash in, you can either secure a kill or secure the space necessary for the rest of your team to follow you and be able to create that space, that little 5-second pocket that you take into a full sight take. And if your Jet dies and you're not able to find that value and your team gets stuck in a choke, all you can really do is twiddle your thumbs and wait for something on the defense to go wrong, especially given the fact that we're headed over to Haven 2nd, Fracture 3rd. But my goodness, this is a surprise for me, Hazza, because I didn't think, I'm gonna be honest, we would see Pearl. I thought FOKUS, after the performance that they had against Apex, knowing as well that Hookahs run the Phoenix like Apex on this very map, it would be the instant ban, but no, the instant ban for them was blind.
I don't think it surprises me too much that we see Pearl. If you cast your minds back to the very first playday that we saw, FOKUS were able to pull a overtime win of their own out the bag in 16-14 style against HS Deer on the exact same map. I think the bigger conversation to be had here about these 3 maps and the absence of Ascent is the fact that it's been played in 12 of the 14 matches we've seen so far, probably leans a bit more in towards that Jet, and I'm seeing 3 maps here which I think are going to be great for Mishu when you look at him being able to play on that Phoenix, play on that Raze, and not just have the 100% pick rate on the Jet that we've seen from Yugi.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say now, I need to buy a crystal ball. So I told you in the break, I said, isn't it gonna be strange if we're the ones that get the very rare occurrence of no Ascent popping up? And that is exactly what has happened. And we can have a look at the compositions that these teams are going to be taking us into Pearl with. And there it is. Hookahs have already locked Mishu onto that Phoenix. FOKUS, once again, staying far away from it, choosing to field Yugi on the Jet. And this is a point of concern for me because this Jet is going to be running into so much area denial. Not only do you have to worry early contact from things like the Seize and Haunt, picking your location out with that Fade, the turret is going to be there to call you out, the nano swarms to slow you down, the curveballs from Mishu, the grabs from Akimbo with the Well. This is not going to be a fun time for Yugi at the start of these rounds.
It certainly isn't. There is some consistency across the board in terms of the agents that we have locked in here. Not too much of a surprise for PURPO on that KO, your boy Lewis and Yugi in those roles. It was really between Lime and Cape Set as to who would be on the smoke, who would be playing the Killjoy. Lime's playing Killjoy about 40% of the time, so it doesn't surprise me too much that he's going to be picking it again here on Pearl. More than anything else, it's about having those roles locked in. And speaking of locked in, we are locked, we're loaded, and we're ready to fire off into this first pissed around between FOKUS and Hookahs.
Yeah, FOKUS starting off on that defense. Historically, their defending rounds have been cleaner than their attacking rounds when it comes to those first death tallies, and that's definitely going to be something we have to keep an eye on, as it is going to be down to Yugi to find that first pick and slow Hookahs down, because they have a lot of flashes, a lot of utilities to just brute force their way onto one of these sites, and the Jet needs to find a pick to stop that momentum from being picked up early.
It's great play already to get that orb into the hands of Mishu on the Phoenix. One of the win conditions for picking this agent is to have your run it back every few rounds, and already it's a bloodbath in towards mid. Trades going out, but they do favor Focus for the time being. Radsky with a quick sucker punch to make things a lot more favorable for Hookahs now, and they look to just freeze, slow down the pace, and move towards the A main control, which they already got in the early round.
I mean, Akimbo is already super close to being able to push on to A, but they can't really move forward just yet, as they don't know where the other members of Focus hold up. That's something that the defenses are doing a very good job of. Early contact towards mid, and then just pulling intel back, making Hookahs really doubt themselves, so they have as little utility as possible when it comes to this retake.
Do have a nano swarm on the spike. We've still got the gravity well to be used as well, as Akimbo still had 3 stars as we were heading in. One of the bonuses for Focus is they had that Killjoy still playing in the form of Lime to give them control elsewhere, and now their retake is already well underway. Your boy Lewis almost at the choke of the site before moving through. A shock dart would kill Mishu here from the corner, but actually sends it the opposite way and keeps him alive for just a moment longer. First tap towards the spike, the util starting to be baited out, going for the peak. Mishu able to win it out. The trade's still going here. Hookah's in favor, but that spike has already been half tapped, and there's multiple angles that Capeset has to contend with. Not looking to get on it for a moment. Tap after tap, time ticks away, and this will be a pistol round for Hookahs.
Focus almost had that in the bag. Unfortunately for them, they lose too many on the re-entrance onto that site, and as a result, even though Capeset is able to stick that half, there's just too many firing angles coming at them to try and focus on just getting that last half. You're being encroached upon from all sides, and hats off to Hookahs. Mishu was extremely low, but really good utility usage from Radsky, dropping that turret, forcing Focus into really pushing and getting that utility out of the way, allowed the Phoenix, despite a sliver of health, to still find a pick before he goes down.
It's huge from Mishu to find that kill to Lewis as well from the corner. You were just sort of wishing that he would send the shock dart there to try and find the kill, but, you know, didn't completely clear it out. And once again, rinse and repeat from Hookahs. They knew what worked for them in the previous, but this time around, they do look to just be moving straight in towards the site itself, and it's a stack that waits for them. Big damage from Lime already, and the kills are found off the back of it. Mars with the Bulldog trying to pick off a couple more of these remaining players, actually gets Lewis in towards dugout. Finally, Hookahs back in the advantage in terms of player numbers, but this one already looked a bit costly, and I think here you still have to execute towards A. There are guns dropped, you don't want to lose them for fear of retake, and PURPO with every chance to find a player back through off the back of the flash. A little bit of damage. Util coming through to try and soften them up off the back of the nanoswarm. The peak. No scope from Yugi. 2 versus 1 still doable, but there is a couple of hoops that'll have to jump through first if he's to get there.
Well, Marshall in hand. Master's extremely low. One Marshall shot should be able to drop them, as we do see, however, Spike has gone down. Yugi can't really try and grab one of those weapons, but he wants it! And he does it! He clutches! He swings onto Masked, hits the shot he needs, and then is able to find the second. And all with enough time to go for the defuse. There's a reason that we said to look out for this Jet player, and you're about to see it in action right now.
He hits the headshot as well. He hits the only headshot that he needed to. Everything calculated. Wins this one to Mast, and Radsky just not quick enough to trade it out. Hookahs, they've lost the second round, and it feels as if we're starting to see some of the same problems crop up once again. Went straight into the A take without clearing anything out. They had the utility, and it's just that small oversight which has cost them another round.
I wouldn't even say it was an oversight from Hookahs' side. Like, it's a smart play. You have the Bulldog, you're using that utility to flush out all of those members of Focus, so you can just mow them down with as many collats as possible with that Bulldog bullets, but it does not pan out for them. It's a little bit too predictable. As now we see that blaze being used. There's the Phoenix immediately moving on forward, clearing up that space for Hookahs, but Yugi is still able to find a pick onto Mishu. Thankfully, it's in the run it back for him, so he's going to pop right back up. But all of that momentum Hookahs were looking to instill on B-side is entirely removed. Now Focus have had time to reposition, and they have angle control.
Oh, the peaks out don't go in their favor, however. Hookahs have made a great deal out of this round already. Capeset coming in close, finds the first to Mishu, looking for Akimbo. But the repeak is good this time around. Hookahs splutter back to life and find themselves an instant response to that round dropped from FOKUS. I love it. They have the run it back online already immediately. Mishu prioritized those orbs in the previous rounds, goes for the hero Vandal, finds the initial pick with the great use of the hot hands in the corner here as we see Yugi flushed into an angle which is easily tradable off the back of that ultimate. And there we have it. Immediate response, exactly what they required.
And that's exactly why this Phoenix is so strong, right? Even if you lose that second round, your economy should be in the absolute drink. However, because you have that run it back, because you've prioritized that ultimate, all you need is one rifle and a Mishu! Oh my goodness, he's already got two!
Yeah, you said you only needed one rifle. It's a Phantom this time around. Just completely ghosted the entire of FOKUS's mid-presence there towards Ali. They'll try and recuperate some of it. Lewis has already snuck his nose through the door somewhat, but the Prowler does eventually re-clear. Capeset moving off the back of this as Hookahs are now funneled into a B execute. With the Killjoy player down, it's a lot of information that they've lost, and for that reason exactly, we do see the Owl drone come out, but nobody peeking this one just yet.
Yeah, drone not going to be there, and as a result, your boy Lewis is going to have to face check! Oh, that's over. Manages to matrix away from the majority of the damage, but still takes a hefty brunt of it. And Hookahs trying to just push forward, dropping those smokes, now trying to push onto your boy Lewis, who caught in that smoke, has absolutely no idea where Hookahs are coming from. As with those pistols, it's going to be extremely hard for FOKUS to be able to pull this one back. PURPO only has the Sheriff. There's no point in saving. You do just need to try and peek and find an exit frag before you lose this round.
Yeah, if you take one of these rifles away from Hookahs, it's not going to do a crazy amount, but bringing 2 rifles into the next instead of 3 can be a pretty drastic difference at times. And already we've seen PURPO pick up the Phantom. Now maybe a window to save, but looks like he's going to be going for this one. First tap on towards the spike, just about outside of the utility that's placed. And instead, David will place PURPO's name on the spreadsheet, upload his name to the list of many who fall into that KO. And Hookahs now expand their lead up to a third.
Well, FOKUS now rolling that dice. We've all been in this spot where you have to ask yourself, what is more important, having an operator or having a team full armor? And they're deciding to prioritize that op. There's absolutely a reason for it. That op can slow Hookahs down. And this is a composition that thrives on speed. Even if Mishu goes down early, as long as he finds those first 2 picks, he's done his job. He's created that absence of numbers for Hookahs to just be able to have the confidence to move on to. And the op should slow this team down.
Certainly should. We'll have to see whether that pans out in reality, because already Hookahs have prioritized B long this time around. And look at it, Mishu already has the run it back. I said before, your win condition is getting that ultimate online. He does so, but there's an immediate response. And the Blaze Wall does go up. Same utility to execute towards the site. Killjoy lockdown also there, flashes 2 and takes them both down with him. Brilliantly done. It's an entry masterclass right now from Mishu, and Yugi's operator on the opposite side may not be hitting the same numbers in this head-to-head just yet.
I mean, Yugi gambled on them pushing onto A, and that if it was a B, FOKUS had the means to be able to slow the push down long enough for the reposition to come through. They are still finding kills, however, the spike has been down in the ground. Kratsky is waiting at the end of Link to cut off anyone looking for that reposition, and I have to applaud Mishu, because you said it, it's a masterclass in entrances. Not only do you use the run it back to get all of the intel necessary on those positions on B, but you walk through the nano swarm, a move that no one in FOKUS's side in halls is expecting, so 2 players get caught off guard, and Mishu once again is able to do the numbers damage necessary for Hookahs to be able to brute force their way through the round.
And he's already a third of his way to the next one. You're taking at least 1 orb every single round, and then you also either dying or finding the kills necessary to bump that number up even higher. It's the baseline of what you expect from a Phoenix here, and I mean, he's going above at this point in time. Positioning from Radsky close to the box as well is brilliant, expecting the high flash to come through, and no real surprises. FOKUS will implore that timeout. The only round that they're able to pick up so far, if we're being entirely realistic, is from the sole heroics of Yugi on that Marshall. So at this point in time, they need to find another way to find some success in the sort of early to mid round, because getting bailed out in the late round is really not a consistent strategy to be falling on.
They need to find an answer to this Phoenix, and it's the really hard thing to do, right, with how Mishu is playing it. Because you either try and aggressively push onto this Phoenix when he pushes onto you, and it's going to really come down to either PURPO just being able to hit one of those points where you're able to checklist the Phoenix's position and deny him his utilities. And that is going to take an absolute masterclass of guesswork, or where Mishu is going to pop up, because once again, Hookahs are mixing up the script. They've pushed B long so often that it is now ingrained in FOKUS's mind that they have to worry about tower control, and now Hookahs flip the script, they're pushing onto A.
Yeah, Hookahs have already shown presence in both main areas of the map. Smoke going up to fake presence, and Akimbo will quite happily take the kill for Mishu, who's forced to back away. Lewis is spotted. Oh, and is able to take 2 heads down with him. This guy on the Sheriff is different gravy and might just be looking for a couple more as soon as he say it. Things not looking as good as they were, but even then, it's an absolute masterclass by the FOKUS players in main. They didn't really have the guns to be doing anything on this round, but they found a way to do it anyway. And now it's Radski 1v4 to deny FOKUS reducing that gap.
It's sort of Hookahs' own strategy turned against them, right? Hookahs are a sort of powder keg of momentum and aggression, but it takes a little bit for that powder keg to be able to fully light up at the start of these rounds, and FOKUS have identified now. As long as we catch them before they're properly set up to put that Phoenix's plan into motion, as long as we're the ones who make that first move and don't let Mishu dictate the tempo and pacing of every single one of these rounds, and we're not playing on the back foot because we're caught out by those curveballs, we can take away the space that Hookahs have to play with. And that has that domino effect on the Phoenix. Mishu in that last round had very little that he was able to do.
I mean, just looking back at this as well, I'd forgotten since the last time I'd seen FOKUS, and that's completely my own fault. But whenever Lewis has a Sheriff, there's always a chance. You cannot forget that, because if you do, it will be the last mistake you ever make. And he proves it exactly why in main on that round, and is already gearing up with these other players to take their more aggressive B main control this time around, up towards the top of the slope, instead of the opposite way around, because perhaps for Hookahs, this is a reconsideration of how they want to approach things. And yeah, Capeset sat inside the Nebula, has already collected plenty of information about what this default looks like, probably hearing the clocks of the turret from that corner as well.
Now you can see FOKUS have understood that last round they got so much value from it because they denied Hookahs that setup. Prowler comes on through. It is going to immediately be that Nebula pushing on forward to make sure that if anyone does try and chase after and punish that little bit of delay you have switching target from Prowler to player. However, Hookahs being a little bit more hesitant. Again, mixing up that tempo, not really allowing FOKUS to get a proper read of how this team is going to play. However, when rounds slow down, it is always going to be up against the attacking side, given they are the ones who are currently up against the clock.
I mean, that book is probably 700 pages long when you look at the game against Apex on here, but FOKUS have built themselves a very nice situation. The full Killjoy setup towards the A site with expansive control down long, and it's forced 2 cars into an execute that they don't really want to take, and there isn't time for them to even attempt it either way. I don't really think they're going to go for it, it looks like anyway, as they start to move through. Not much left on the clock, and that spike is isolated in the hands of Akimbo towards main, but he does find the kill necessary. Yugi claps back. It's not going to be enough, however, and this one will grind to a halt. Mask getting a couple of exits on the way through, but Lewis has saved the operator, one of the main saving graces for them on that site defense, and now the gap is reduced to only 1.
Yeah, again, that's that problem, right? For the attacking side, time. It's always your 6th enemy, and Hookahs, they think because they have that Nightfall available, they have that ultimate to be able to brute force their way onto A and deny FOKUS the confidence to be able to sit deep on side, anchored, and prevent the spike from going down. No, FOKUS, they're holding on to the lockdown, so when they see that Nightfall come through, they don't need the sound cues, they just know it's time to drop the ultimate. Hookahs won't have enough time to be able to push and plant spike because of it.
as I was saying before, about that baseline for ultimates for Mishu, having to run it back, hasn't really been hitting the same height since that happened. So maybe just the honeymoon period, at least on this map. Feels as if many teams have taken a moment to really hit their groove, so back and forth with the quality that's on display, and Mishu already taking strides towards this alley control has forced PURPO to move back into the heart of this focus defense, and now Hookahs will begin to move towards B, which I think is a smart decision. Knowing the Killjoy setup was on A the previous round, you need to at the very least deny that expansive control towards top ramp.
Yeah, the problem for them is that Yugi is still set right by Link on that B side with the operator. They will have the blaze wall. They will be able to block off the side, but it's not a sage wall. It doesn't soak the bullet.
No.
So as long as Yugi knows that there's a presence there, he is going to fight. He's going to slow Hookah's push down, and that's why we see the Cosmic Divide. That does stop the op.
Yeah, and now we've also got the null command coming off the back of it as well, so there's no utility to invite additional peeks here from Yugi to go for another. On the opposite hand, there's a flash drive to send Mishu even further forward, hunting for an extra kill or two. Yugi will post up a lot deeper as the spike is now planted, and yeah, it's that extra comfortability towards the more difficult plant as here comes that Hunter's Fury through. Yugi able to find the first kill. Mishu does swing back, but finally it exits the bow and is able to connect with the chest of Mishu, who will finally fall. Lots of player numbers for both of the teams here, and that also means plenty of utility on this spike to buy even more time for Hookahs, but they need to find some of these kills as the players are moving further up. In comes the defuse, not quite getting it to half just yet. A big stun and a couple of shots from Radski to make it 3, nearly getting a 4th. Yugi wanting to run away with that operator, however, and I'm not sure he's going to quite get it. He doesn't. Skin of your teeth kind of stuff, and Hookahs bring it over the line.
That round was so back and forth. Hookahs with the ultimates being able to use that Cosmic Divide and then further investing the Blaze to be able to take control of holes, knowing that the spike is down. You're going to need to have that split angle to hole up and stop Focus from just being able to push back onto that side. And then we see Focus hitting back in with that Hunter's Fury, knowing that, okay, they're behind holes. We have to flush them out into the op shots. We're going to use the Sova's ultimate, and it's going to force them into the op, but it's Radski posted up towards the entrance of Club, who's able to, from the long range, gun down those members looking for that defuse and allow Hookahs to stay strong. And this is what we wanted to see from this team. We said if they're able to find that aggression, that confidence on the first map, this team is going to look entirely different. And already we're seeing the results.
You can see the different ideas that this Pearl choice has been crafted from, right? The success against Apex, knowing that Focus have historically perhaps struggled on it just a little bit in previous matches, and with it being their pick, you expect them to take it. Or not expect them to, I suppose, looking at previous results in terms of what Hookahs have been able to do, as Mishu with the run it back online finds yet another kill. But the trade's maybe not so preferential as more space is brought in towards the site. Things do start to look up, but this is all just a ruse. Additionally buying time for that rotate to come through and actually get the spike planted on A.
Smoke and mirrors. The curtain lifts, but unfortunately for Focus, that spike has already been planted onto A side. And now they have to move the op, one of the clunkiest weapons in the game, into position, knowing that Hookahs have had all of the time in the world to be able to reposition so that they don't have to worry about it.
He is such a dynamic player on that operator moving in for the retake, but also perhaps the player that you want to be holding the spike when you consider who's going to be coming back through. The flank finally realizes itself for Lime, and so too do the shots, which are able to connect with a couple of players, maybe even a third for him on the round, but not going to happen. In the end, Focus clean things up. Nice use of their own Cosmic Divide to find a way back in. And as far as the defender's side goes, this is already looking to be pretty good for them when you consider what Mishu will then have to try and do if they want to replicate that success the other way around.
Yeah, Cosmic Divide is honestly the only way that Focus get away with that diffuse without losing so many of their members, and crucially the op, because it is a win condition for this defense. We've seen it be so detrimental to Hookahs' composition, but what it also is a investment. The most expensive weapon in the game by a very long shot, given how powerful it can be in these rounds. And for Focus, they do not want to have to continue to buy it, otherwise it's going to have serious ramifications on the other bits of kit, as we see hot hands come through from Mishu, flashing out to have a little bit more security as you peek from Plaza into doors. Lewis has seen the commotion and wants to challenge.
Oh, and there is a commotion under the ocean as PURPO just lines him up. Finds 3. Those are armored full-bore opponents, for goodness sake. I don't know how he does it. Radsky tagged away in the corner off the back of the fragment. PURPO's got a 4th and he's hungry for more. Wants to see if he can download this final kill, going for a couple of taps, using the 0 point to confirm positioning. Hasn't cleared the corner. Should know that the radius doesn't quite reach it, but his crosshair certainly will. 5 for FOKUS, 5 for PURPO. And you're starting to think that perhaps Hookahs need to stop and take 5 because they haven't looked as good as they started this one.
Yeah, Lewis sets it up. PURPO knocks it down. An absolute masterclass in how to play that bait and switch. The Uno reverse card comes out and Hookahs' timeout comes out as a result. It's really good to see though that they've identified that momentum that they had off of the back of those Phoenix ultimates so early on in the game has since burned out, pun entirely intended, and they need to go back to the drawing board. And they're not waiting too long. This is the most important round for them in terms of the money that they have, in terms of the utility that they're going to be able to have access to. They need to turn things around and quickly, because this round is by far the most crucial.
Yeah, Radsky already has most of his utility, can buy fully with heavy shields and a rifle here as well, and will just be shy of a singular nano swarm. There's definitely a way that Hookahs could buy into this. I would like to see them go back to taking some A main control. A lot of the success that they had was derived from that position on the map, faking the Nebula towards B long and, you know, perhaps lurking Radsky in that position. It was the heroics of PURPO and your boy Lewis, similarly to what we saw in Art on that previous round. A masterpiece in and of itself on the Sheriff that has mainly dissuaded them from wanting to re-challenge it. And I think it's just that one snap moment that they've really bought into, perhaps, rather than, you know, weighing up what that option looks like later down the line.
I think for them, it's because it's a little bit more punishable on that A push, right?
Yeah.
If you try and push and you meet a little bit too much resistance towards B long, there are angles that you can hide behind that you don't have to worry about being wallbanged as you try and make your escape, as opposed to that angle on A, where it very much is you have to hit your shots and make sure that the person shooting back at you is gone before you can make that disengage. And as a result, Hookahs yet again forgo the A push in favor of the B and are unfortunately going to be stuck in a stalemate of one Marshal shooting towards an op.
It is the lower buy that they have opted for. A fast send towards heavy B control, which is now just sitting and waiting for any of the FOKUS players to bait into it and look for something. Nano Swarm in, Mishu peeking through it. Very, very cheeky. And Lewis doesn't expect it whatsoever. A nice little play to snag themselves an additional rifle in towards the post plant as Akimbo looks to get things down. Yugi perhaps looking to drop down, but instead the only thing falling are the FOKUS players. Finally, there is a response, but this is now a 4 versus 2 with crossfires set up and these players locked out of the site, no way back in at the time being. Barrel out, so is the knife. Come on, Dawood, not quite getting the timing that they would have liked. Mast finally claims that kill. And Yugi may just want to save. That is a ridiculous shot to the head of Dawood. But it's just going to have to be a save.
Yeah,
surely.
he's got that dash prime. Don't peek!
Yeah, just wants to go for any extra damage as possible, and now that the barrel is empty, we'll have to load up a few more shots. Mishu hears it. They're trailing one another like a car on a motorway with a train clacking along the tracks next to it. And it is the Hookahs car, which is doing a lot better now off the back of that timeout. 2 players dying to the spike. Not sure how that happened, but I don't think it will have too many ramifications on what the buy looks like in this one.
Speaking of how it happened, my heart goes out to your boy Lewis, because that's the exact same push that Mishu makes. Blaze wall to wall off tower control into holes through Nano Swarm, and the Sova's expecting it. He has the bow out, he goes for the utility rather than holding the angle with the rifle, and as a result, Mishu gets an open season lifted straight up into his arms. And FOKUS lose that control. They don't have that lockdown on B with tower control and holes in their possession, and Hookahs are able to push once again bullying them onto the sidelines with that horse control to just black out any impact that the op has.
Right now, it seems like Hukar's approach is fire Mishu into any open orifice and then slow down the pace in the late round once we have maybe even numbers or even something preferential. Unfortunately for them, it's a double dip in towards Ali and they get punished for it. A black market deal goes the wrong way and now they're at a player deficit heading in towards the B site, it looks like, with less than a minute left on the clock.
Once again, opting for that B push. I do like FOKUS's approach. They've seen that, okay, they're losing players when they try and hold on to that B site for a little bit too long. You can actually see your boy Lewis having all of the information that, yeah, he's probably going to get pushed aggressively from main into halls. He's just going to back out and wait. They're going to play the full 4 players that they have remaining for the retake. But Lime goes down too early and 4 becomes free.
That's the second round in a row that we've seen Lime being overly conscious of a flank that never materializes and then ends up dropping to Radsky, who's pushed up more aggressively. Now a 3 versus 3, things look so much better for them. Yugi has popped the blades and can bring a more dynamic approach to this retake. In fact, he'll take down Radsky with him almost immediately. The spike not planted in a good position whatsoever. Akimbo, so much work to do and incapable of finding it. The killer blow is there, and we're going to be heading out of this first half all level, tied up 6-6. It's a question of who's going to send things in their favor once we swap around, and if it has to be my guess right now, FOKUS perhaps looking a bit better adjusted to do so.
Yeah, that's the biggest question for Hukas, right? They relied so much on Mishu being able to aggressively just buy them through that B-side approach. What are they going to do now that the Phoenix is on the defensive end rather than the attacking score? You could just play reactively. You know that Yugi is going to have to push and create space for the rest of his team, and you have so much utility to be able to counter this Jet when he does make that move. But Hukas have shown that they are an aggressive team, and I'm not sure if they're going to be content to wait and allow FOKUS to make the first move.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the bulk of the rounds that Hukar has found against Apex were from their attacking side, so offense is the best defense perhaps, and already we see them send it in towards mid. Lewis trying to clamber after those players who have managed to get away scot-free. It's been an expedition back through art, and now they're all sitting incredibly deep with Radsky just collecting information passively here towards Ali. The odd jiggle peek soon to be greeted by a couple of FOKUS players, perhaps just waiting for Dava to first contact. Shot's not quite connecting. Actually, PURPO's dropped incredibly low. That might have been off the back of Radsky actually going for something of his own.
The problem for FOKUS is that that early bit of contact towards mid has entirely deprived them of their duelist. They don't have a way of entering onto these sides without expending so much utility. Your boy Lewis does open up with the Frenzy, taking down Masked. That allows an absence onto A. They need to clear Akimbo though, sitting in dugout. Shockdot's going to be able to pick them up, but they're still going to be able to come in with 2 before they go down, and that might just have won the round for Hukas.
Oh, it might have, and the health advantage is certainly something to look about. Lime eventually ends up being the one on such low HP. Radsky's read this brilliantly and will just be following after the footsteps that echo along the hallways of Pearl. Trying to get the plant down, and yeah, may just be setting up for a poster here towards Ali as the Nano Swarm narrowly avoids them, walking into the crosshair, and it's a very simple pickup for Radsky to close out the round here. Killjoy versus Killjoy. Hukas versus FOKUS on this pistol round. They'll be getting the better of them for the second time in a row, actually.
Well, it doesn't win them the round immediately, but Akimbo getting those 2 kills does allow Hukas at the end of the day to be able to take that one. As unfortunately, finding those 2 kills deprives FOKUS of actually getting that spike plant that they're looking for, forces them into that reposition, and as a result, Lime 22 health will need to take a smidgen of damage his way for Radsky to be able to come out on top. You know that the spike just went down as well, so you're able to catch Lime unawares as you cross out underneath tower. And as a result, having won that pistol, we will see Hukas buying up into the SMGs, but no Bulldog coming out for this team. FOKUS, on the other hand, opting for the full eco. They're not even going to try and send that Jet in with a Vandal, or even a Bulldog to open up the space. Instead, it's your boy Lewis at the front.
Oh, Mishu able to trade one out. Look at these Sheriff shots, so dangerous. Now it's his turn to be on low HP again. A graze to the knee would be enough to end the Warrior's lifestyle for Mishu, so those flames will help heal him back up through the wall. Got a pretty deep position here in alley, actually, to hear those players in mid and moving through shop if FOKUS want to redirect in a more snappy manner, but they have just slowed things down off the back of that pick and want to hold on to A main control for this late exec, perhaps.
This is something FOKUS struggled with in that last round. That one first pick going against them deprived them of so much free movement around this map, and you can see they want to push towards that A, but they just don't have the confidence until they have full control, and to get full control they need to push past Mishu.
Timing. Oh, it's not good. Lime's able to find one, and David even clips his heels on the way back out. Trips over, and Hookahs may be fluffing their lines for the second time in a row. They won both pistols and may soon be finding themselves losing the second round back to back. Yuki just posted in the corner with the Sheriff, looking for the players to move through. They're all in from spawn side, and there is a turret to take contact here as well. Crossfire's established, players posted up, and Capeset tearing them apart. FOKUS find it 7-7, and perhaps it's just their lucky number, because
those
that is
SMGs
yet
early on in those rounds,
fantastic
and
second round
FOKUS
response.
Yeah, it's always a tough one for Hookahs, right? You had the better buy, but you lost those SMGs, and worse, you didn't have the presence to be able to cover stopping FOKUS from picking them up. And as a result, you don't have the power that you're looking for on re-entry onto that A site. And Yugi with that control, it spirals all off of the back of this pick. The timing, like you said, it's so unfortunate for Mishu. Gets taken out by that pop flash coming on through from PURPO. Is FOKUS now deciding, okay, we're going to pick up the Vandals, and we're going to just try and push onto the site as fast as possible and invite Hookahs into taking the distance fights, knowing that the rifles are going to be a lot stronger, but not if Masked Sheriff can still hit the shots like that.
Yeah, I don't know if there was some kind of buff with all of the changes that have been going on right now to crosshair accuracy or something on the Sheriff, but we've seen some clean shots already, and they've proved to be difference makers at this point in time. Very cheeky from Mishu on the shorty here. The flash may not be enough. Radsky's able to get it done, but still, so just really not a good situation here for FOKUS whatsoever. I can't stress that enough. This is now a 3 versus 2. The Killjoy lockdown, I think, is a fairly shrewd one in the end, because you want to go and get some extra control, maybe stop these players from taking a weapon, but Mars will take another shot. One which will connect quite nicely, and now it's a 3 versus 1. Lewis isn't looking the right way. The Classic is poking a tickle gun from that distance, a water pistol of sorts. But a 1 versus 2, and still a possibility. Has some utility, but goes for the dry peek, and Mars gets his third.
I think FOKUS got a little bit greedy in that round. They knew that they had the better buy, but they also knew that if they pushed on to B, they'd have to use more utility to clear out Hall and Tower. And as a result, they first tried their luck at A, thinking that, okay, we have the better guns, we should be able to win that straight out duel and take control of the site, but it doesn't go the way that they planned. Masked Sheriff is able to pick up one of them and forces FOKUS to turn around onto B, and unfortunately, you have to use that utility to clear out halls, and you still don't get the foothold that you're looking to establish. Worse for them, they use that lockdown in a round that they ultimately lose, an ultimate that they're not gonna have back. And it's going to be straight back to the emergency panic button. Yugi's got an op, it worked for them on the defense. Now they have to pull off the same magic on the attack.
Yeah, and in many ways, that's the exact same as the previous half. Hookahs also went for, like a hero Vandal on that chance. It was a half invest from them, and they were able to find round 3. So if things carry on at this rate, we'll be here for a very long time. It's going to be another overtime, which sort of resembles a year in recent history when we look at how many rounds they end up totaling. But finally, a full buy for both teams. Only a round separating them at this point, and perhaps not the trajectory that we would have expected, but I think you could say the same thing about both of their teams in the form that they've had in the tournament so far. Look at this.
Oh no.
Picturesque in art. We're seeing Mishu getting ready to go for something extraordinary. A Mona Lisa of sorts. Their finest work as the flash comes through off the back of the Aldrone. The bunny hops from Lime. Has a tail and a pair of ears. That's ridiculous stuff. And Radsky just completely disrespects it as Lewis finds a couple of players and sends them all the way down the other end of the street. 4 versus 2, and FOKUS have their response again, you would feel. But you never know. You never know.
Well, Akimbo has tower control, but Yugi's there with the up, sees the shoulder, finds the head, and Akimbo is down. We know now that FOKUS are going to be able to take that round, and it's a round that they desperately needed if they want to keep this up in circulation. We've said it before, it's an extremely expensive and costly weapon. It can cost your opponents rounds if you're able to pull it off correctly, but it can cost you entire series off just economic management alone. And it's expected, I think, for FOKUS. They know that Hookahs are going to bundle up towards Art. They know that it's a bait to try and push them into that curveball so that they walk into the remaining members of Hookahs sitting behind Mishu. And FOKUS know, because it's a play that they use themselves with your boy Lewis baiting for PURPO. And as a result, curveball connects, but they have the space to be able to just bunny hop away from consequence.
Mishu not quite finding his magnum opus just yet, but when we look at the side of Hookahs reaching their final form in terms of ultimates, we nearly have all 5 online, only shy by a few ultimate orbs. Mast re-peeking from the other side of that angle. Yugi could adjust, but not aware of it. The muzzle flash not giving off enough signs, and I think Mast might be happy just to sit back here, but instead will use the Prowler to clean this one up with a fine tooth comb. Maintain the A main position, as there's no control towards Art this time. They've left it completely clear. So too is the position in Art, as PURPO's walked completely onto the site, missed the first couple of shots, but finds the follow-ups. And just like that, yeah, they now have a post plant to be bringing through once again, and hopefully taking the lead.
They should have enough time as well to maybe double back and grab that up for Yugi, as Akimbo and Mishu. Akimbo does have a Vandal, but Mishu, working at the moment just with the Sheriff, has a Blaze Wall to be able to invest Curveball as well, to be able to try and buy safety as you peek this angle on too long. There's the Nano Swarm to make sure he's not able to even start to tap that defuse. And he unfortunately does go down. Akimbo left alone on the Astra with that Vandal. It's looking to just save.
I think this is probably the smartest decision. You can bring another rifle into the next round. With it being sort of half invest, I think the credits should be there for them. Hookahs want to go for something, but it's somewhat unfortunate when you consider how well Masked was able to do towards main with one of the rifles that they did have. And then the rest of the setup was so patchy, porous in places, where FOKUS were just able to walk up, contact it with absolutely zero issues, and find the kills necessary to break open this B site, which actually had quite a few players in its presence.
You can see that Hookahs, they're fearful of the op, they're playing around it. They really don't just want to try and brute force peek right onto B long, and as a result, it is allowing FOKUS a lot of power early on in these rounds. Now they're not losing players to early pushes towards Arders. There's the op. Yugi with that dash primed up just in case someone peeks in, sees the Astra, and hits the shot. Akimbo is down, and with it spirals away so much map control for Hookahs.
That's a tough one. When you have the gravity well up, the last thing you want is Yugi staring you down, putting you into a black hole of your own. And now FOKUS, a player to the good, look to set their sights towards the A side of the map this time. Hookah's going for some proactivity. I love this. Run it back in towards mid. Mishu not quite finding the shots necessary, however. And this may just accelerate the A push a little bit in terms of what FOKUS want to try and do, with less than a minute left on the clock. Starting to move towards the choke as the Aldrone clears out Radsky back site. There should be utility to deal with him. Goes for the peak instead, dry, and is able to get some kills from it. Mast with a couple as well. Brilliant form that he's been on so far, and Spike out in the open needs to be recollected.
Hookahs might be able to win this.
30 seconds left.
3-2, 30 seconds left. FOKUS have to get the Spike down. You can see PURPO just very cautiously trying to make their way through. They don't know where Mast has positions to. There we go. Clears dugout. Is able to find the fade. should be able to clear enough space for Yugi to get that spike down. They really want to make sure that it's safe. Clyde Rush comes on for to cover it. Mishu's able to take out PURPO in the meantime. And as a result, Yugi moves away from the smoke, checks the gun, and David's able to find the jet before they're able to reposition Hookahs, even though they'd lost control so early on in the round when they lost to Kimbo, do such a magnificent job of bottlenecking FOKUS up on the entrances to A site that they are not able to get the spike down as fast as they want. Razki is able to find those shots necessary, and FOKUS are slowed down long enough for the reposition to come through.
It's absolutely brilliant, and the two remaining players are the ones which finish off the retake there. Those are the ones which went for the aggressive play in towards mid. Mishu and David combining, using the run it back just at the pivotal moment before you expect the execute to come out from FOKUS, and like you said, making things a lot more egregious for them. It's exactly what we want to see. Some change, some spice, a little bit of flavor to this defense, and finding ways more than anything else to get this Phoenix involved to do some problems.
You could say a little bit of flair.
Yeah, a little bit of flair, a little bit of fire, I suppose, as well to help them out. As we're just seeing this execute come straight through. FOKUS looking to clear the whole thing out, have the Cosmic Divide. What's the Hookahs approach? They're already starting to move through. Lion gets traded out by Mishu, who is here, has a nice flash to isolate the fight to Yugi. Second curveball flinging on through to see if he can follow it up, and there's a Killjoy lockdown here as well. Hunter's Fury traded. Big ultimate investment from both sides, and the ramifications of this round continue to stack on up, as do the kills. Both remaining attacking players are now stuck on the opposite side of this wall and need to find a way to re-challenge as the utility is there. Great fragment to deny the defuse, and the double swing will claim FOKUS up to 10.
Oh my goodness, so many ultimates invested in FOKUS are just so good at dancing around that Cosmic Divide. In the last little bit of that fight, you actually see PURPO just very quickly peeking through the Cosmic Divide to get that 0 point, to connect on towards the space where the spike is, to guarantee that Hookahs aren't actually diffusing. They are just keeping that spike in play for as long as possible. It had been in the ground for as long as it had been. That's why FOKUS were just throwing ult after ult, body after body, to deny Hookahs the space, the time to be able to get that defuse. So even if they lose the numbers, they still win the round.
I have to say, I think that looking at that round in a more thematic sense, however, it's completely trashed the ultimate economy for Hookahs. They've been drained of pretty much everything they had to work with, except for that Nightfall still in the hands of Mast. And FOKUS are saying, you know what, if the fast execute works, let's try it again and just go towards B this time. First kill found onto Radsky and get the plant down pretty happily. We'll be looking to take some hall control here as well, so that it's a bit deeper of a site defense with where the plant is currently posted up, and this should be a very comfortable one. Hookahs will be looking for exits.
Yeah, especially because Nightfall is a great ultimate for a defensive team to use to stop attackers. It's not the best when it comes for retakes unless you have the weaponry to be able to really quickly swing and take advantage of the fact that your opponents are denied of those sound cues, that information. And as you said, it is just going to be a save. Exit frags trying to be found for Hookahs at the moment. Mishu does have a Vandal, a Kimbo. Going to try to find a pick onto PURPO as they exit. Not going to be able to. And as a result, it is just going to be those members sans Mishu with that rifle to save it into this next round, throwing themselves after FOKUS and trying to make them to spend as much as possible heading into this next round, because we're at a very crucial, pivotal moment for Hookahs. They don't have other rounds past this where their economy has the time to recover. It's either take this round, continue on in the series, or lose the round and be a match point on a force.
We have seen this imbalance in terms of momentum from the two teams, but on the whole, keeping things pretty close between them. FOKUS now carving out themselves a bit of a lead here, and it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that Hookahs do want to go for the timeout. This is the second one that they have before a potential overtime if they want to, you know, call an additional one. And yeah, it's stuff like you said about the Nightfall. You have the Nightfall, but you don't have the Prowlers. There's just not all of the pieces to the puzzle that they would have needed. It's a hammer without a chisel in many ways, but this time there's a null command, you one off another, run it back. I would like to see Hukars go for some early control towards A main here, see if they can get the run it back online early doors and find a way to dictate the mid round with Mishu's ultimate, and then things are looking, you know, a little bit better for you. FOKUS now building up the reserves in terms of economy, so it might take quite a bit to rock this ship, and I have to be honest, I'm very worried for Hukars if this map ends up going the other way and we head into Haven.
Yeah. I'm very worried because this is by far their strongest first map, but we've seen how it can have an impact for Hukars in the long run of a series. Losing that first map and putting so much pressure on yourselves to take that second does actually push a lot of mistakes to be cropping up for some of these players. It is just going to be FOKUS taking a little bit of a slower approach, wanting to see whether or not Hukars would push aggressively for those first kills. Try to take advantage of the defense and pick away at the numbers as much as possible before a side is fully decided upon, but Hukars aren't playing into it. They're not pushing for early arc control. They're content with the angles that they're currently holding, and they're gonna wait for FOKUS to really expend a lot of their resources, expecting an aggressive defense and finding absolutely nothing.
Hukars do actually, as it stands, have one more round than their total first map rounds combined at this point, so it is looking good, like you said, and the second highest total being 5, so only 1 away from improving on that, but Lime may just be denying the opportunity from ever arising, because Hukars, everything is into this round as well, right? You've bought a full set of rifles, you're going to be broke on the next, and then you're staring down your opponent being on map point, having already lost a player in that position. Dawood also a player who had the null command up and available, ready to cause some issues. You know, there's not too much that they can do here. The retake will be difficult, and for that reason exactly, they've tried to do it as soon as possible.
Not able to stop the spike from going down though. They did use that Nightfall to try and do just that, but they're not able to catch out members of FOKUS. Good attacking lockdown, forcing Hukars all the way back, so they can't even really play off of that Fade's connection with the ultimate. And they just have to save. They've already lost 2 of their players. They'd fully bought into this, right? They'd used ultimates as well. They thought this was the one that they had to turn things around. This was their best opportunity to turn things around, but I guess it is somewhat of a silver lining that it turned into a save and they're able to carry 3 guns in, so it's not going to be a full force, but FOKUS are going to do everything in their power to deny it and force that round into being as much of a tough spot economically for Hukars as possible.
Yeah, Mishu has a great opportunity to flip the script, however. The world gets turned upside down, but FOKUS can still dig into those coffers which are overflowing with credits. They'll have enough money for every single remaining round here in regulation if we even do find ourselves going to an overtime. It's a shoddy buy from Hukars, but they've got to throw the kitchen sink at it. We see, like I said, Dawood died early in the previous round, has the null command available, so that is something to be thinking about when they went for the save. Okay, we still have ultimates that we can bring back here, and Mishu now bringing the run it back online as well. There are chances for them to make this work and really eclipse the issues that there had been here for them, but it all starts with finding that all-important round. The only issue is FOKUS have an alt economy of their own to start building up, and plenty of opportunities, 3 even, to keep this one rolling over.
Yeah, and they're splitting their team as well, and that's going to split Hukars' attention. Not brilliant news for a team that are unfortunately still running 1 Bulldog and 1 Spectre. And as a result, FOKUS are just going to make noise towards the B. Meanwhile, the spike is absolutely nowhere near currently. Now it's starting to drift towards us. Hukars' attention has started to drift. Ratsky is able to pick up your boy Lewis. Starts off good for the defense, and he's not going to get too big for his britches. He finds that first pick, and he immediately pulls back so it doesn't turn into a trade and turn against Hukars.
Ratsky plays that so nicely, and gets a little bit lucky perhaps that Yugi didn't just go for the full swing. It's another kill for him on this B site defense, and things are starting to look up for Hukars as that plant does go down on towards the spike. We still have to be aware of this lurk from Lime as he actually just gets cropped completely out of the picture. Mask collecting that kill, and Hukars yet to drop a single splatter of blood on the pearl canvas as they keep that petition for making this double digits going. Yugi stuck in the corner, great combination of utility, blind and dead, who cars find every single one and make it flawless in the retake.
Sort of the age-old question of Valorant, right? You've got the how many people does it take to screw in one light bulb? How many people, or rather how many bits of utility does it take to find a kill on a Jet? Because poor old Yugi gets caught in the grab well, and then hot-handed, and then prowled, and then finally put out of his misery with the guns. But it is going to be Hookahs pulling victory from the jaws of defeat. That round was so against them, but it was by far the most challenging. And not only that, but because Radsky was able to find those two really cheeky, really good picks, it's meant that they were able to keep a hold of their ults. Not only has Mishu been able to circle back to a run it back, but David still has that null command in focus. We don't really have anything to force the KO's hand except maybe initiating with one of their own before and pushing David into exchanging one of their own.
I think half of it comes from Radsky, which is a brilliant start, and the other half comes from Hookahs looking for some control towards A main in the late round. We saw 3 players moving to that position and take very advanced space away from their opponents, and then Mast even cut out the lurk of Lime that we saw heading through Art as well. So by the time it gets to the retake, like you mentioned, they have everything that they need and can just hold on to those ults into the next round. Radsky now only 1 away from having a lockdown 2. Things really looking up here for Hookahs, and if they can find this next round, actually, then we slowly get to a point where FOKUS's economy is perhaps called in question for the last round of the half. You know, perhaps there'll be a couple pieces of utility or some light armor in the mix there, but need to get it done on their terms either way.
It's the same lineup being used by Masked every single one of these rounds. They used it last time as well, that Haunt all the way from A side into Restaurant. It slowed FOKUS down so much, but it's not slowing them down this time. Kipsa and Lime both are able to peek, and it is going to be contact from both sides, but FOKUS comes out on top.
Imbo playing inside the Cloudburst, just drops the shoulder around the opposite side, and the trade is there, but it's a 3 versus 2 coming into the retake. As soon as that spike is planted, you have to say that this one looks as if it may just be heading towards FOKUS, winning things out. And oh, they've sold Radsky in this situation. It's a game of ring around the roses, and those players will be getting their roses and flowers as well, as this is where all 3 are now posted up. Some utility to send back through, but Dufford is just so low. 3 points of health. I have no idea how he was dropped to such a low place, and Lewis will only take him 1 step lower, 1 step deeper. Hookahs look to have been going 1 step further. They found more rounds than they had on many previous occasions, at least in the first map, and still not enough.
I mean, you have to feel for them as well, because all of the points that we talked about for this team were there. They found that early control. They had the game plan that was working out for them. They were the ones coming in with that Phoenix strategy that were able to dictate so much control at the early starts of those rounds. And we thought, okay, they've got FOKUS's number. This Phoenix comp is working out perfectly for them. And then the side swapped. And I told you, I said this was my biggest fear. The Phoenix has so much control and aggression that you can get away with brute forcing your way onto B so many times on your attack. But when you're on the defense, it becomes so much harder to make it work, because every single time you try and early peek that angle, FOKUS can just lie in wait for you to make that misstep, and then they can punish. The second they hear a curveball go off, they know your position, they're gonna jump out, and they're gonna be able to shoot you second.
Just from speaking to David as well, we know that a lot of how Hookahs are able to play goes off of the confidence, as we're seeing here again. PURPO with a confident play of their own, and Yugi even as well. I mean, all across the board, there were some great plays on both sides, but yeah, once the sides did swap and we found Hookahs having to play out the defense, I don't know, it just felt like the game was slowly slipping away from them, and the ideas that they were trying were really sort of struggled, laboured efforts. It's that previous round that you saw on the VT package just then as well, where we saw, you know, like 4 different ultimates invested from both sides, where they weren't able to turn a result where you say, okay, yeah, if they're gonna throw that much at it and not be able to find it, that is the turning point really in terms of how these teams are matching up against each other. Just looking at the scoreboard real quick, Mask thoroughly impressed me towards the second half of that game, I think, and was a real lifeline on plenty of rounds for FOKUS. But PURPO all across the board, incredibly consistent, and 298 ACS on the KO there is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, really good as well when you're running that KO to have that impact, because if Yugi does go down early because of just how much counter utility there is for the Jet on the attack to try and push onto those sites, you still have utility to be able to make sure that you're at least safe to be able to try and enter onto those sites. Whether it's flashing out control from the defense so that you can swing onto those angles, whether or not it's using those 0 points to be able to clear places like halls or the deeper corners that you're not really going to be able to reach until the defense gets to fire at you first, that KO is absolutely instrumental in FOKUS's attacking rounds, and as a result, they're able to walk away with that first map win.
They certainly are, and that is the first map going the way of FOKUS then, so they are 1-up in the series against FOKUS. For FOKUS, it's a familiar position, they've been here before. Unfortunately, it is their pick, so if you're looking at different factors that you can perhaps try and extrapolate to give you a little more confidence that something could happen, if you need Bodork to give you that extra huff of copium or hopium, I don't really know which is which at this point, there's definitely an overlap, who knows, but we'll have to see until the second map. FOKUS, who cares? I certainly do. Stay tuned and we'll be back for Haven.